Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Jeremy Medeiros and JP Ruja in Flats Inlet, Bermuda, and Peter Drew, my assistant, who is already out on Nonsuch Island preparing concrete and such. And we're going to be heading out to join him shortly in the essential job of repairing and replacing concrete nest lids and repairing burrows that were damaged in the recent Hurricane Fiona. While I am on Green Island preparing the cardboard and plastic molds that we use to pour the concrete into to, make repairs to some of the concrete artificial nesting burrows, Peter's going to be mixing up concrete on the dock at Nonsuch and then transferring them into 5-gallon paint buckets, with 30 to 40 pounds of concrete in each one. This is how we've been doing it for probably close to 40 years, repairs and also making new burrows in some of these islands, which logistically are just a nightmare to do this sort of work on, because they always have an ocean swell nearby, happening around the islands, and so it makes transferring these heavy buckets and even yourself and other equipment and tools on, backwards from the boat onto the island. It makes it extremely hazardous, shall we say. And today it's not too rough, but the swell is picking up. We have bad weather forecasts for much of the next week, so literally we have today to finish these repairs, because the other factor is that the Cahows are due to return starting in the next 10 days or so, week to 10 days. So this is probably the last opportunity we'll have to finish this work and make sure all of the nest burrows are ready for the birds to use. Because if the concrete nest lid has been swept off, or if the nest itself has been damaged or pieces of concrete ripped away by these gigantic swells, birds, obviously, they can't use it, and the loss of a nest burrow can often lead to the breakup of the nest, the breeding pair. The nest is what holds them together. It's where they meet together every year after spending their summer period, when they're not breeding apart, thousands of miles apart in the open ocean. Okay, so we've managed to land the buckets of concrete on Green Island with difficulty, because there's a building swell. This is our last chance to really do it for several days, because starting tonight and tomorrow there's a cold front moving in with strong winds and rain and higher swell. So it's now or never, because the first birds are starting to appear in the sky over these islands already. So basically, I've already set up the molds, concrete and masking tape, and on a plastic bag on top of the nest burrows, and we're just going to be pouring the first of the lids to replace the ones that were washed overboard or smashed during Hurricane Fiona. I just did see excreta outside the entrance of a nest, so yeah, they definitely, a few of them have been visiting already, which is cool. Okay. And these are nests where the lid, the concrete lid that seals off the top of the nest, the little access hole, which we have to make very heavy and strong to withstand waves and hurricane force winds sweeping over them. But when you get a really big hurricane with waves that are way over my head, in fact, over the highest point of the island during some of the biggest hurricanes we've had, highest point is less than 20 feet. We had waves up to 35 feet during Hurricane Fabian in 2003. And in Fiona, we had waves of at least 25 feet. So, they were breaking over this whole area. Most of the lids stayed on the island, so I was able to find them and put them back, and most of them were still usable, but some of them were either broken into pieces, like the D1 lid, or they got overboard, and that's, we're just not going to be able to find them in usable condition. So what we've done now is, this is the easiest part of making a new concrete artificial nest burrow, is we put a heavy-duty plastic bag over the top basically of the nest. That's the little hole where the hole is. We make a little indent there. Then we get a ring of cardboard, get it to the right length and size, put it over the top like this, basically, and then we just simply put the concrete right over the top of it, dab in the middle to maintain that thing, because that helps to keep it on and give it a really, it almost locks the lid into place. And then we start putting it around the edge. Just like this. If you've ever made chocolate chip cookies before, it's like molding dough, but very heavy dough that's also extremely corrosive. Like wet concrete like this, if you do get it on your flesh, on your skin, and I generally like to mold it mainly with my bare hands. You have to get it off fairly soon, otherwise it'll eat the outer layer of your skin right off, which is very painful, just very burning. You know, it feels like acid, but it's basically like bleach. It's hyper alkaline rather than hyper acidic. So I do this, but I many times have ended up with very stinging fingers because they've been exfoliated, shall we say. Now, okay, so that's a fairly small lid as they go. It's probably only going to be about 10 or 15 pounds when it's finished. Some of them, like I said, can go up to nearly 50 pounds if they're in exposed places. Yeah, a little bit more. But what I also like to do is some of the shade rocks. In this island, there's no vegetation. The rock is extremely dense. It's very hard old limestone. In fact, it's Walsingham limestone, which is about 1 to 1.6 million years old. And so it's as hard as granite, really. It's incredibly hard and heavy and dense. And so it can be very hard to carve these things out. We have to do it with a carbide drill. But also I like to, it heats up in the sun. That's one of the downfalls of it. It's a little bit more resistant to erosion, but it does heat up. So we use shade rocks around these to help keep the nest chamber underneath cooler for when the chick is in residence. Otherwise, temperatures, we have put thermometers in these, and temperatures can get up to like 115 degrees, which is just fatal for the chick. So we put these shade rocks on this island, and also on Long Rock, which is made from a similar sort of limestone formation. One thing I should mention, this is the smallest part of the nest. The actual nest chamber itself is made of like 4 to 8 inches thick concrete, and then the long entrance tunnel, which can be anywhere from 6 feet like this one up to almost 12 feet. And the whole nest, to make a brand new one, is about 600 to 800 pounds of concrete. So if you're making like a bunch of nests, like half a dozen or 10 new nests, well, you can do the math. It's a couple of tons worth of concrete you have to mix, land, just like you saw us landing it on this island. Not an easy thing, even at the best of times. It's not what I would call a rough day at all, but it's still always a challenge. And yeah, you just have to be exceedingly careful. These rocks are very sharp and spiky. That's why I tend to be exceedingly careful when I'm doing this. And I never take it lightly, you know. No matter how many times I've done this, and I've done this quite a few times now, it never loses the capacity for you to really badly injure yourself. But yeah, you do. It's not what I would call, exceedingly safe work. You do have to be very, very careful, and you have to have quite a bit of experience to do it. I of course worked with David Wingate for quite a few years before he ever let me do this on my own, and so doing the same thing with Peter and others to make sure that this will go on.
All right, so I think yeah, that looks actually very good now. We've used it all. All the concrete. Okay, so I think that makes, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, we still have 2 or 3 to go. So we will move on to the next one, which is number 2 down here. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's definitely been a Cahow visiting here. There's a couple of droppings right outside of, looks like number 10 nest. Number 9's done, number 7's done, F2 is done, and now we are doing number 2 nest. I'll have to tell Peter this concrete is mixed exactly the way it needs to be. Still somewhat watery and malleable enough to mold easily, but firm enough to stay put when you put it down. So Peter has helped me with several of these new nest building things, and hopefully we'll be doing that a little later this season as well. Building a few more nests on Nonsuch Island for the exploding population there now at the A Borough complex. This island used to have the second highest number of Cahows nesting on it, about 27, 28 pairs. When I first started working, when I took over from Dr. Wingate, that is about 22 years ago, there were about 19 pairs. So it's increased, but it's not increased a huge amount. But it's because this island is like a horrible place for the birds to nest. It's no vegetation, it's spiky, it's hot, it's dangerous. Even a lot of the adult birds from here have holes in the webbing on their feet from getting perforated by the sharp points on the rock. So I can often tell when it's a bird from a green island. And they're very tough birds. They tend to be more aggressive from this island. So I guess a nasty island breeds nasty, aggressive birds, you know, but they are survivors. More of them survive when they're chicks. You know, they survive those first few years at sea to come back eventually 3 to 5 years later as adults. More of them survive from this island. They have a higher return rate than from any other island. And as a result, I've leaned heavily during the 2 translocations to Nonsuch. I've leaned heavily on this island, on chicks from here, because they are proven survivors. And I guess it's just, you have to be a tough nut to. This is like living in, I don't know, living in a sort of mine or a slag heap or something. You know, you just have to be tough to live here and survive here. Tough places breed tough people, and this is certainly the case with Green Island. It is a tough place, no doubt, to live on. And that's why when they go to Nonsuch, they think they've died and gone to heaven, because of course Nonsuch is deep soil, abundant vegetation, soft grassy slopes, no spiky rocks and stuff. So the birds just, you know, probably can't believe their luck. And that's why more and more of the young birds that were not moving are actually turning up on Nonsuch now at the colonies. You know, we're not translocating them. They're being attracted by the translocated birds that have returned. And Nonsuch, just in the last 2 years, has now eclipsed this island as the second biggest subpopulation. Nonsuch now is at 34 breeding pairs, so it's five or six more than here. Okay, that's a nice big one. Now I am going to use the rest because we also had some damage to the entrance of the 3-4 nest here. The nest itself held firm, but we lost about a foot of the entrance here. It just got broken away. So what I'm going to do is just cement a couple of rocks on top, right to the former place where the baffle is, and that will just help to you know, help the birds basically to you know, have this Okay, let's put this here. Yeah, it's just constantly with these islands, really, ultimately, with rising sea levels now because of climate change. And it is a real thing. When you work in these islands, you see the sea level rise yearly now. It's accelerating. And, you know, really, at the rate of sea level rise, in about another 30 to 40 years, this island will no longer be able to support Cahows, or tropic birds for that matter, because the sea level will just be getting flooded even during winter gales. I hear Cahows. Yes, so there is a pair in one of these nests, probably in either number 11 or number 10, and that's where I see the droppings outside. I just heard the like puppy dog cry of a Cahow, so that's great. Yeah, they are returning already, and I think it's the 17th or 18th of October, and that's very early, extremely early. Normally we don't start seeing them until around about the 25th or so, but it's like everything else in the natural world. Everything is changing their breeding cycle because the planet is heating up. And why is the planet heating up? It's because we're dumping gigatons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. So we're making it into a more and more efficient greenhouse. It's nothing new. It's been known since the 80s. It's just certain political elements have put doubt into it for their own agenda, to further their own agenda, which is complete nonsense. So you heard it right here, and you can call me a crazy climate person or whatever all you want, but it's true. You can't deny the truth of what's happening in front of your eyes, you know. Okay, so that's done now for a while. I'm just going to put this back up here just to help shelter it a little bit. So with that, I think we just have 1 or 2 more buckets to go. And that is number 1, which is at the other side of the colony, way over there. So, okay, well, we have managed to do the last of the Hurricane Fiona repairs on the most difficult island to do them on, and that's Green Island, which is difficult even on a totally calm day with no swell, which almost never happens. So this is a calm day to do it on. This is the calmest day we've had in a while. We have very windy conditions coming starting tonight and tomorrow as another cold front comes over. So this was the last chance. And thanks very much to this guy here, a strong right arm, mixing up the concrete and stuff. We've been able to get 6 new nest lids built, and reinforcing work to several other burrows done, and even to the little deflection wall that deflects waves away from some of it. So mission accomplished. I'm really happy. At least 1 pair has returned, because I heard them calling from inside the number 10 or 11 burrow. So this is literally in the nick of time, because if a pair comes back and finds no roof on their house, that's probably going to disrupt their breeding for the entire year. So yeah, it was a very close thing this time. It's almost a yearly event, doing repairs after hurricanes. So with that being said, from JP Rouge, this by Peter Drew and myself, Jeremy, out on Green Island and Nonsuch Island, Bermuda. Hope everybody has a great day, and yeah, hopefully we can keep the Cahow population. I think we've been successful in keeping them from losing the breeding productivity of a half a dozen or so pairs on that island this time. So I'm very happy and very satisfied with that. Everybody have a good one, and all the best.